you thought drinking out of a glass bottle was a better choice for you and the environment, think again. A new study has found a worrying amount of microplastic contamination in the beverages, sometimes more than those in plastic bottles. Microplastics contain up to 16,000 chemicals, including PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, which can cause heart attacks and cancer. The drink found with the highest level of contamination was beer, followed by soft drinks, whereas water and wine were both considered relatively safe.
This is why people hate mainstream media, because there was so much misleading misinformation in everything she just said. This is not journalism by any means. This is reading an AI generated summary of an article and then making a super inflammatory, like keyword optimized headline, and then like writing a news segment off of that headline. And it bears little resemblance to the actual study and the actual field that it interacts with, right? Now, what's crazy is they actually said a few things that were really true, and they're so close to like the real takeaway that would actually help people, but they just don't make it, do they? So they literally said, water and wine were actually within safe levels. Not that any kind of microplastics is safe, but those were very, very low. And it's the iced tea, the lemonade, and the soft drinks that had the most amount of microplastics. Oh, and the beer had the most amount of microplastics. Why is that, guys? Why is that? Oh, that's because it's the most processed. Regardless of what the packaging was, the most processed drinks had the most amount of microplastics. And by the way, there have been hundreds of studies about microplastics in plastic bottles, and this is literally like the first one that I've seen where the glass bottle had more microplastics than plastic bottles. But this is not an accurate quantification of the amount of microplastics that you will end up ingesting, which is why I kind of hate studies like this, right? All they're doing is testing a beverage at the beginning of when it's bottled. And in a glass bottle, that's where the microplastic contamination ends. It's only going to come from that cap screwing on and off. However, in a plastic bottle, you will not only get microplastics as well from that cap screwing on and off, but you're also going to get microplastics the longer it sits in that bottle. You're going to get microplastics if it has any exposure to sunlight, if it has any exposure to heat, if there's any sort of like squeezing of that bottle, right? And then the longer it's in there. And so again, this is really not an accurate representation of the overall risk of like microplastics that you would get from a bottled beverage, right? With glass, the only microplastics you get are from the cap. With plastic, you get microplastics from the entire bottle as well as the cap, right? And that makes a difference. We also mentioned that there might be PFAS. No, the PFAS don't come from plastic bottles. PFAS are going to be in the beverage itself from the water supply that it came from, but it's not going to be from the plastic bottle itself. But again, the beverages that had the most amount of microplastics were in the beverages that were the most processed. So ultimately, at the end of the day, this is why people don't trust the news anymore. They present a problem irresponsibly by not giving you the full information. It's meant to instill fear. It doesn't provide answers, and it just makes you more afraid, and it can end up confusing you. Like, what, you shouldn't buy things in glass bottles now? No, glass is still way better than plastic. A disposable plastic bottle is way worse for the environment than glass is, and that's unequivocal. So there's a reason why people don't watch mainstream media news like legacy media, because of all this misinformation.